Welcome to the Attract Your Ideal Clients podcast. The show is for entrepreneurs who sell their expertise, including trainers, consultants, and coaches looking for real-world, actionable marketing advice to help them identify their competitive strengths, find and fix the marketing bottlenecks that are holding them back, and confidently make the right marketing decisions for their unique business. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the dangers of trying to be everything to everybody, the importance of choosing a niche, and why focusing on a finite set of problems to solve for a clearly defined market is so critical in our hyper-competitive industries like training, consulting, and coaching. Joining me today is Richard Walsh from Sharpen the Spear Coaching. If you enjoy the show, I hope you'll consider subscribing and leaving a review. So to start out, can you just share with everybody who you are, what you do, what kind of problems you solve, people you work with?
Yeah, Richard Walsh, Sharpen the Spear Coaching. About 35 years in business now, so been at it for a while, a number of iterations, right? First business about 20 years, lost everything 08, 09, started over, scaled two more businesses, opened a gym, had a construction business, did those two things and started helping people. Actually wrote a best-selling book called Escape the Owner Prison, built an academy around that and created a coaching space for entrepreneurs, primarily service and trades industry, home services industry. That's my main focus, to help guys really get out of the owner prison, which is when you're begin a business. First thing, Marcus, right? You're working really hard. First 2 years are really rough on everybody, right? We get that. There's no way around that. But then all of a sudden, 10 years has gone by and you've repeated the first 2 years 5 times. That's the prison. Okay. They're still opening the door every day. They're still kind of making sure they make payroll. They're doing the day-to-days and they never really get the freedom they wanted from starting a business. Right. So now what I do is I show them how to attain that freedom, and that usually begins with actually profit. Right. Because we're doing this business. But what I found throughout the patterns, throughout all these businesses, I started noticing these patterns that really just create the same cycle. And the problem is they're leaving a lot of profit on the table because they're so busy doing the day-to-day, trying to make sure people show up doing all that. They can't really focus on the business aspect, right? They're a great craftsman or tradesman or technician who started the business, but they didn't really know business. And that's not their fault, right? It's not really taught either. So we like to come in and show them a lot of hidden areas of profit they're missing so we can really get traction to grow. Right? Because it's hard to expand when you don't have any money, right? It's hard to hire people when you don't have any money, right? But it's all there for them. That's the key. It doesn't mean they can be making $1 million or more. They can make $300,000 a year, $500,000 a year, and I can find them $100,000 in profit. Right up that's there. They're just missing, right? So we get that begins the process. And then from there, we begin to really organize the business, systemize it, get in the processes, because the ultimate goal, Marcus, is to get the owner to be focused on just the 5% of the business only they can do, right? Vision and growth, reeling in the big clients while everyone else is taking care of the day-to-days. I think that's it in a nutshell.
I think it's a good nutshell, and I think that's a lesson all of us can get better at, myself included, is focusing on that 5% or 20% or 30%, whatever it is, right? And I'm learning to get better at that because I'm kind of a control freak, right? And that's one of the reasons I've been a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, whatever, freelancer for 2 decades. But yeah, whether it's the trades or whether it's freelancers or coaches and consultants, learning how to really kind of build a business rather than just a job that you're your worst possible boss, right? So thank you for sharing that, a little bit of context for people listening. And you and I first met a few weeks ago. We chatted a little bit about what to talk about today, right? And we talked. There's a couple of areas I wanted to really focus in on today's conversation with you, particularly sharing what's worked for you as far as client acquisition, but around 2 specific areas. One is kind of niche marketing, which you've already expressed. I mean, you have a very specific niche with the trades and the home services industries based on your experience, right? And then the other thing we talked about, which I'd like to get into more, is this idea of focusing on pain points versus features, right? I think it's so common for people, whether you're selling expertise or any other types of service or products, to really focus on like, this is the whiz bang of what we do, and this is my experience. And ultimately, what people really care about for the most part is this is the challenge I'm dealing with. How can you help me solve it? So just kind of setting the table for people listening. And let's start out with, this idea of niche marketing. I think that there's a lot of sometimes friction around this for people because they hear you should niche down or you should pick a niche, or you should pick a target audience. And that can be very scary for people, right? Because that means making decisions and deciding maybe I'm not going to go after these people, right? So just to start out, can you tell me a little bit about your approach to having picked this niche and kind of how you look at niche in general?
Yeah, what I learned a long time ago, and I kind of fell into it. I wasn't being coached back 35 years ago. There weren't a lot of business coaches. There was no internet really. Okay, we think about it. So you weren't getting
I
information,
remember.
right? Yeah, we all remember, most of us. But so the issue was I kind of became that. I started in the landscaping business, and then I saw the water feature bit, custom water feature business, and I'm like, well, I want to do that, and I want to only do that. So how can so I started my business like that's all I do, right? I stopped at the water's edge, right? From the inside, right? I went out and only aquatic plants, only things that were wet, boulders, waterfalls, let a landscaper do everything else. They can come in and they're pros and they can do that. And that really began my affinity for niches because I grew an incredible business and being that specialist and I knew exactly who to serve. I knew exactly who to speak to. So the whole beauty of niche marketing is you have well first thing you have to do is know who your customer truly is. Who do you really want to serve? Right? Who's and what I do with that real simple, Marcus, is you ask someone, well, tell me about like your favorite client. Who's one of the best? Give me one to three of your best clients you ever work with. And they'll tell you, oh, it's this. And they never bothered me. They let me do my work. I got done. They paid me right on time. They did, oh, and they tell you all this stuff. Well, where they live. They live in this kind of house and they do this and drive these kind of cars and they make this kind of money. I'm like, okay, there's your niche. That's your customer, right? Now, what do you have to do? If that was such a good experience, what did you actually deliver to them? Right. So you start thinking about, yeah, I actually did a few extra things for them because they were just super cool, super nice. And nicer people are to me, the nicer I am to them. And so you realize, wait, I can actually use that and charge for that because they want that. They value that. Right. So once you have a niche, you understand your customer to the level of you know exactly what they value. And this is going to lead into the whole feature benefit thing, right? And pain points. You understand what they value, which is critical, right? Because it's not about money per se, right? Everyone wants to save money, everyone wants a good deal, but they buy for value, right? They don't buy a car that's $50,000 because if it was $50,100, they wouldn't buy it. Okay. It's so they have to understand it. There's more, they're not buying it for the price. It's for everything else that it does. It makes how you look, how you feel. It's a new ride. It gets me where I want to go, right? There's value attached to it in a lot of different ways. And we have to understand that about our customers for whatever our service or product is that we're delivering, right? So once we get the niche, so you start to look at that like, and what when they call it a niche, like, okay, that's who they are. What specifically do they need? If that's your product or service, great. How much of their service do how much of your service do they really need? Think about that because sometimes we've got this smorgasbord of stuff that we do. Okay. And 30% of it we do something like once a year. It's basically not profitable, right? It's just something taking up space on the menu. Like you'll go to a cheesecake factory and they have 170 options on the menu, right? And I just stand there and go, can I get a regular cheesecake? Or whatever. It's like I just right. You say I want something really, really simple. So we want to make sure that we're that we know exactly what we're serving. So we may want to narrow down that menu, if you will, I'll use that term, right? So we're able to service our client at the highest level with exactly what they really want. We're not wasting time on fringe stuff that doesn't matter, right? And what that does for you when you're niching markets is you're able to raise the caliber of the product or service that you're offering because it's all you do. Right now, you can really focus. You're not worried about the one time they're going to ask for that one-off thing, So you're doing that. It's kind of the same as the wide net approach, right? That's why we have a niche. We can't be all things to all people. That's the key. That's the key. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I was gonna throw in a couple of thoughts there too. There's a lot to unpack, but I'm like I'm off camera basically, but I'm like nodding my head furiously as you're saying this because one of the many things you said that I was nodding to furiously was, who to serve, who to speak to. I think that's one of the things about this that's so understated when people talk about niches. If you're starting something, if you're a coach or a trainer or a consultant or any kind of business, if it's just you especially, you only have so much money to work with. You only have so much time and energy to work with. Your potential market for all your skills could be massive. But the reality is you're only going to be able to actually reach a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of those people, right? So why wouldn't you want that tiny fraction to have as much in common with each other as possible? So you mentioned with the houses, right? What kind of houses I'm assuming this is for like contractors and home services, right? Where do they live? Are you going to focus on the part of the zip code of town that's really like the people have the money for this stuff, right? They work long hours, so maybe they need somebody they could trust. Like it really narrows down your focus so that you can actually have a lot more impact than if you were just randomly going to networking events,
Mhm.
hoping, that you might meet somebody who needs your services, right? So that's the first thing that popped out in my mind.
Yeah, it's really important. Even, when we talk about it's called ICP, right? Our ideal client profile. When we want that thing about like whoever they are, whatever you do, what is their household medium income? Again, you can go back. Yeah, I'm a construction guy. I want to know what kind of houses I want to work on, but also how do people live? You need to know them. Where do they spend their time online, offline? What kind of books they read? What are they in country clubs? Are they here? Are there what things do they belong to? Right? You really got to dial that in and find all that because now you know where to go to find them. Right? Whether that's marketing, in person, online, offline, you have to know where to go to find these people too. So the more and I have multiple worksheets you can go through and fill in the blanks, right? And do your research. And when you have that, you can super target your marketing. And use an example, I mean, take Facebook. They do lookalike audiences. Okay. So if you're talking to certain people, looking at, we're going to find people who look like them. They have the algorithms for that. So the more you know, the more specific you can find your customers. So in the digital age, if you've got the info, the data that what you're looking for, you can plug it in and some amazing things can happen.
Absolutely. And I think one of the challenges, first of all, there's the technical side of this of even understanding how
Right.
Facebook might work or these different types of marketing tools, which, was somewhat of a specialty, right? Not everybody in these
Right.
fields might really be experienced with that. But I think there's also this emotional barrier, right? It's like, again, thinking in terms of like people that sell expertise like yourself and myself, consultants, trainers, coaches, freelancers, whatever. And it's kind of like a lot of times they start out, their first clients came from their existing network, right? So there was an aspect of randomness to it where, they kind of say, well, I help leaders and I help them solve this problem. It's kind of a generic, thing, but they have the relationships. So now the relationship carries a lot of the weight, and so it's easier to have a conversation, and in the conversation now they're getting into the nuts and bolts of what the problem is for the potential client, and they're getting business that way. But that only takes you so far. At some point you need to start now reaching out to people you don't know, and if you reach out with this kind of like I help leaders level up their skills or whatever, like if it's just kind of like a generic thing, well, guess what, so does everybody else is saying that, right? And
Right.
so it becomes really tricky. And I have this actually, speaking of home services, a little personal anecdote that I think will relate to what you're talking about. We're actually closing on a home on Tuesday, right? So super excited. But here in Ohio, as a lot of places in the country, there's these issues with radon, right? So we had to get radon tested and all that. And there's some radon detected in the basement, so we have to get it mitigated. So I called up these radon contractors. Now, to your point, like the problem is, right? I need to get this in. Right? I
Right.
don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the options are, but there's radon in my basement. I don't know if that's going to kill me in a week or 20
Right.
years or whatever. So there's an urgency there. It's a problem there. In my head as a consumer, what I care about is, are they going to answer the phone? Are they going to respond quickly? Are they going to set up a schedule, an appointment quickly? Are they going to educate me on my options? Which is all an ongoing thing because I haven't met them yet, right? But these are all things like from that example, when I'm thinking as a consumer, I'm thinking, boy, I really hope one of these contractors that I've scheduled the appointment with for the estimate actually comes and shares some information, educates me on my options, right?
Right.
And so if you think about me as that ideal client for that particular type of
Mhm.
contractor, as opposed to the laundry list of radon and they do plumbing and they might do all these other things. And I just think for me, it's the most current real world example, at least from a
Yeah.
customer point of view.
No, that's awesome. And it's important, even if you do multiple things, okay, when someone calls for radon, all you talk about is radon. Oh, by the way, do you have plumbing issues? We do that too. And this, you don't do any of that. Like, it's the old show up and throw up. Tell you all the 27 things they're specialists in, which they're not, right? But if your concern is radon and you're serving a radon market, right, everything's about that. You're right. You just describe what the customer journey should look like, right? Because that you're the recipient. That's what we need to understand as a business owner. Like with my construction guys, a big thing we kind of coined was world-class experience. Everyone's got a construction horror story. Okay. Anyone who's ever had a remodel done or windows put away, anything, I can give you the top 10 off the top of my head. But what we want to do is say, okay, we're not going to do that, right? We show them what a world-class experience is and we build that. Because if I showed you 5 remodeled kitchens, okay, pictures of 5 different contractors, they're all amazing, right? They look great. They're done. Let's go talk to the homeowner. Talk to the homeowner. Well, I love your kitchen. Oh yeah, thanks. It's really nice. Well, how was the whole thing? You just had it redone. He goes, yeah, I'd never do it again. Worst experience of my life. Right. And that's what they do because all the stuff that happened from the contract signing to finish. Right. So that's the problem we need to solve. Okay. We don't want to and one of my clients had kind of a great thing. He tells clients, go, well, just understand that when we get done, we'll still like each other. You know, it was like,
Is a key
and
point right there.
that's right, and he can do it with that kind of sense of humor too. But it's serious. You're going to like me, which means you're going to refer me, right? You're going to have a great experience, and we provide that. We understand all, and you can just do a Google search on complaints of construction, right? On people, and you'll get all the notes you need on what not to do, right? It's
Yeah,
already
which
out
is
there for you.
something that I need to emotionally gear myself for as owning this home now, and I'm going to be on the
Yeah.
receiving end of that. And I want to create a little context with that perspective when it comes to again consultants, trainers, coaches, freelancers. Uh, when I speak to people about choosing a niche, one of the one of the types of pushback I get is, yes, but I do these other services. I do solve these other kind of problems, and I can
Right.
do it profitably, and I can do it legit, and I can
Mhm.
do it effectively, and everybody's happy. And my response to that is, that's great. Like myself, I do that too. I mean, I'm a copywriter. I do marketing, consulting, and coaching and strategy. There's lots of different ways I can help clients, right? But one way to look at it, you and I think, actually talked about this because I showed you
Mhm.
that sticker for my daughter's
Yeah.
Air Force base, right, with the tip of
Yeah.
the spear, right? So it's a
Right.
kind of analogy in the military stuff that we talked
Yeah.
about. So it's almost like, okay, that's fine, but what is that tip of the spear? What is that problem? What is that solution that gets the conversation started? So going back to what you said about radon, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe the radon, that's all we talk about at the beginning because that's the most important thing on my
Mhm.
mind. But now I've developed a little relationship with them. They're able to really wow me with their thoroughness and everything's great. Now we can have a conversation later. So if that particular company also offers handyman services, whatever it is, of course I'm going to be interested in talking to them
Right.
about that. But if that was the beginning of the conversation, it would probably feel overwhelming. And I just think that model, that framework for people listening of thinking, yes, they're different types of businesses, but if you're a trainer or you're a consultant or a coach, thinking of it in terms of, yes, of course, there's lots of things you can do, lots of solutions that you can bring to the table. But what is the one or two things that will get the conversation started that allows you to prove your value, to
Right.
build trust and earn trust, and then you can have that conversation.
Right. You're exactly right, Marcus, because what you're saying is know, like, and trust. right? Everything is warming the lead. It takes 7 to 10 to 12 touches before people even really going to hire you, right? You're not going to show up. There's what is it, 1 to 3% maybe who are ready to buy now. That's the numbers, right? So you got to understand 97% of the people you're talking to are not going to buy the first time you talk to them and tell them what you offer, right? So you have to build that warm up process. What does that look like, right? It's education, it's maybe a little entertainment, it's an offer that comes in, right? So it's all that stuff, right? Tell them about what you do. But like you said, what I like to do is see what is my most profitable thing I do. That's what I lead with. Okay, that's my real expertise. I love having the other stuff because we can upsell, we can downsell, right? And go these different, they're critical to have. But like you said, once you're in and you live up to the appointment, you show up to look for the radon, test stuff. Let's stay with the radon thing. And then you say, oh, you're buying a new house. This is great. How's everything else? Oh, pretty good. We got a little bit of plumbing issues. Well, I do plumbing. Oh, you do? Yeah, matter of fact, we do. We have a whole division that does that. And it's like, oh, now you've already right now they come now they know you. You're in their home. The door's open to talk about that stuff. That's what's important to understand. Everything is a funnel. The beginning of the funnel. How do you get them in? Right. We'll use that term. Get them in the top, and then we're looking to get them down to the bottom. Right. We need to get them out where they're going to actually purchase that, and then they're open. Because remember, if someone buys from you once, unless you're a complete goof, they'll buy from you again, right? So you have to understand, and it's critical for your business. And this is a clarifying point here regarding niches. It's critical that you have these upsells and downsells. You can't be the one trick pony. Oh, I do just roofing, and I'll replace your roof, and I'll see you in 30 years when you need a new roof. Okay, well, that's not lifetime profitable value. They have siding, they have windows, they have other things. So instead of getting 15,000 from them, I can end up with 60 to 100,000 over the next 5 to 10 years, right? With the relationship, because I'm able to build that. So it's really important to understand that niches get you going, brings in the clients, and then you can expand from once you're inside, right? Get in, then you can do the work, and they'll be happily willing to listen and pay for that.
What totally. And whether it's remodeling, whether it's contractors, whether
Mhm.
it's consulting, it's all the funnel. I'm glad you brought up the funnel. Actually, I'll show this
Yeah.
to you. This is kind of just sketches, and people listening, you won't be able to see this, but I have this page of these different
Love it.
versions of funnel, right? Because I've been obsessing lately about the funnel as the framework, as the mental model for everything in business when it comes to business generation, right? Business development. So it's like, again, picturing the top, if or picturing a funnel. If if the top of your funnel is very narrow, that's very much limiting what the bottom of the funnel, how many clients and customers you're going to get. And generally, the wider the funnel at the top, the more clients you're going to get. Where the challenge is that if you go too wide and broad, then it's just there's nobody coming in. So the funnel is such a great mental model to think of because you can slice and dice it so many ways. You could think of it as this mechanism, like everything that has to do with sales and marketing and business development, retention, everything, right? So it's a great way to picture this because when you're thinking about niches, you can think of it in terms of multiple little funnels, right? You can think about you have your one funnel that's your primary thing, to your point, the most profitable service or product that you have. And now you have all these other little funnels, right? Maybe you have a YouTube campaigns going or ad campaigns or whatever. They're all, one is for roofing, one is for this, one is for that. So there's lots of ways to do it, but the key is to make that decision proactively and consciously rather than just by default, right? You're actually choosing those niches or choosing those focuses based on criteria that you're picking, not just based on the people that happen to be at the Chamber of Commerce networking function, and I
Right.
kind of just take what's there because it puts you in a position then where you really you're not able to speak to people in the language that they actually care about. You're only stuck with now talking about how many years you've been in business and how
Mhm.
proud you are and you're family owned and all that. Nobody cares. It's all lovely, but nobody
Yeah.
cares, right?
Yeah.
Not in the true sense unless it's actually relevant to them.
Yeah. I tell people, because I'm always looking at people's trucks and vans and advertising on their trucks and vans. And too often I see like the big thing you see is their name, the name. You don't see what they do. That'll be down below, like in smaller, like it's inconsequential to their name. That's an ego issue for me. Okay. What I want to see, and I have a great one. I have a guy in my town, big white Dodge van, so they're kind of boxy, and it's white, and he's got dark blue letter, really cool blue lettering. The whole side of the van says Bell Drywall, and there's a phone number underneath it. I love it. No one questions what this man does. Okay. There's no confusion. If you need a drywall guy, you know who to call. He's that guy. Now, he may do framing and he may do remodeling and whatever else, but drywall is always a part of all that, right? And some people don't do drywall. They're not experts at that, but this guy knows his niche, and it's super impressive. And I just, people that, when you've got name and then specializing in, you got 12 things on the truck and this and that, people are just confused. Another one, for a quick example, was a HVAC guy, right? On the back of his box truck, right? He's got a furnace and says, starting at $99 a month. Genius. Okay, genius. That's all you need, nothing else. A little website underneath that, but just, you're sitting behind the truck, right, in your car.
Yeah.
And now we got phones. We can just take the picture. You're good to go.
And
Right.
I'll
I'm
I'll
like,
double down on that example though, because that's the other thing on my checklist that I'm
yeah.
gonna have to deal with because my house was built in 2000 and that HVAC is original to that
Mhm.
house. So you can imagine the clock is ticking. If I get through
Oh
this winter,
yeah.
I'll consider myself lucky. So that's going to
Right.
be the next purchase, right? Now,
Right.
if I'm in my car and I see HVAC starting at $99 or whatever the amount was, the other thing that would get my attention is this might not be practical for a truck, but it would certainly work on a website or an ad, is,
Mhm.
something that has to do with not sure what your options are, what kind of HVAC that would work
Right.
best for you, or do you
Right.
have, something like that. So again, this is we're using contractor examples, but I think most people can relate to it as far as,
Yeah.
they can picture it. For people listening, think about how this applies to selling expertise because they are selling
Mhm.
expertise. Contractors
Right.
are selling expertise,
Yep.
right? And so it is a lot more similar than we might initially think.
Yeah, and think about it. We're gonna give you two examples. Go back to the radon thing. That's probably an HVAC guy. Okay, that's probably a guy. That's probably an HVAC guy, right? Who does that? They've got all that stuff, right? So you understand, as long as they build out that framework, so people search radon, it goes to them. Now they're going into this new house. You're going to see now they can talk about your furnace. Okay. So and then the other thing on that, not just contractors, go to chiropractors and dentists and all those people. Yeah, I have a audiologist as a client. Okay, they do hearing aids and everything for people. So what we have to talk about is what I think we can move into this, right? What do you really, how are you communicating to them? Right. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, and it's about the pain. Right. We have to be problem solvers. That's what we do, right? You got a radon issue. I'm here to solve the problem. I'm going to tell you what it is. I didn't create the problem. I'm just here to solve it. Right. And here we go. And we're going to go down that road. Right. And I'll take you through that customer journey on that. Same thing in anything, whether you've got poor hearing, you've got a bad back, what are they advertising? Like if I'm a chiropractor, I don't advertise wellness like a lot do because no one, sorry, they care about their pain. What is their pain? And now, it doesn't mean you can't do wellness. What it means is, what's the pain of not being well? Talk about that. That's the beginning of your funnel. You talk about their pain. And this is why when we niche and we understand our client, we understand their pain in depth. The problem. No one cares about the feature. No one cares. I can adjust you in 37 seconds and you'll be good as new or whatever that is, right? Just like, you can have this in 10 minutes and they can do it's features. I got this horsepower, this many BTUs. I got none of that stuff matters to them. They're freezing. They're freezing in their living room with their family. Okay,
Yeah.
because it's 30 below outside, and like they don't care how many BTUs it puts out. Does it work? Am I going to be able to live in comfort?
Am I going
It's
to be
their
able to afford it? Am I going to be overpaying? Am I going to be
right.
getting something I don't need?
Right. What's the
Yeah.
pain that they have to deal with? When you're looking for these, you talked about when we're talking about looking for the radon contract. Are they going to show up? Are they going to be this? Is it going to be this? You're in the dark. But if they understand that thought process of yours, right? You understand the pain. So I do it like this, Marcus. Picture the pain chart at the doctor's office with little faces. So go to a 10, scrunched up face, right? Serious pain. That's their pain. Whatever you do, make, serve, whatever, what is that? Understand that in detail. And then I picture the middle as like a padlock, locked, right? Then the third picture is the happy face with sunshine around it, little rainbow and butterflies and all that cool stuff, right? Dig in their pain, understand their pain. Okay, so I'm a contractor, I'm a coach, whatever you are. Understand that in depth. When you talk to them, you know it. That's they're already going to be attracted because you know their pain. But then you dig into their pain. You go a little deeper, go next level, next level, not tell me more, tell me more. And then you say, well, when I work with people in that situation, here's their outcome. This is what it looks like now. They have this life, they don't have the pain, they'll have this, all that. Did I talk about the solution? Did I talk about the features and benefits? Not at all, right? Because they don't care. If my arm is half severed off and I'm in the hospital and I'm in incredible pain, they're going to come and say, here, take this, the pain will go away. Am I going to ask for a breakdown of what it is? I'm going to pop that thing, feel better. Okay. That's all I care about. Now, it's important your solution works and it's a great solution, but that's not what they're concerned. They want the outcome. They want to know that you know their pain. You know, the old saying, they don't care what you know till they know how much you care. Right. So then now they know that. And then they see all these people who had your pain and no longer have it. The solution is inconsequential.
Yeah. At least the way, the benefits and the features and all that stuff.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and that's as we wrap up, because I want you to close us out on your thoughts on this specifically. Talking about pain, talking about digging into the pain. One thing I've come across with my conversations with clients or just in general, is this notion that if I dig into the pain, if I talk about the problem, that I'm somehow being negative or I'm exploiting a weakness or I'm exploiting their pain. And I just want to, from my perspective, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm going to ask you as we close out just to give your thoughts on this.
Mhm.
When I think about focusing on their pain, I am not saying you want to exacerbate it or blow it up to something it's not, or create pain where none existed, or make people afraid. None of that stuff. What you're doing is you're relating to them and what they're already experiencing. And
Yeah.
by digging into your words, right, you're not exacerbating it or even like, uh, I forgot the term somebody used, you're basically making it feel so much more horrible. You're trying to understand it. You're
Right.
trying to understand what is the nuances of this so that
Right.
you truly understand their problem, their pain. Now you know exactly how to help them get what they want. I just wanted to kind of highlight that for people listening because I think some people are still like, oh, I don't want to be negative. And this isn't about being negative. This is
Right.
about diagnosing, just like your doctor isn't negative, right? I don't want a doctor go to a doctor that's going to just be like, well, I don't want to be a downer. Like,
Right.
no, like, let's figure out the problem
Right.
because you're here to help me solve it. I just want to, I'm going to let you close us out on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Mark. It's really important to understand that it's empathy. They want to know you're empathetic to their issue. You understand it. How can you solve a problem you don't know exists? Right. So you have to, and the pain is what attracts people. And you're not being negative, but people, they react faster to pain than they do pleasure. Okay. And a great example is if Marcus, you loaned me $20 a few weeks ago, and I call you at 2 a.m, wake you out of your sleep and say, Marcus, I got that $20. I'm sticking it in your mailbox. Just want you to know it's there. Are you going to get up and run out to the mailbox for $20 in the middle of the 2 a.m.? No, you're not. But if I call it, hey, Marcus, there's two dudes coming down the street with baseball bats and they're busting everyone's taillights. Your car's right in front of your house. You're out there in your underwear, right? Looking to take these guys out, right? Because you're going to protect your car because it's loss, right? So we need to understand that. And the pain aspect is empathy, dig into it, it's understanding, and then you present a solution. Okay. Features, benefits, great, all on the inside when you get going, but they're not going to listen to those till they know you have the solution, right? Those are all like built ins, if you will. You kind of get it. I have a Kia Telluride, right? Beautiful car, 20. It does things I don't even know what it does. There's so many things in there, like it's got 37 cameras for what? Okay. But it's like, I have all this stuff, but it's there. I didn't buy it for every detail. I bought it for the basic, right? How I look, I fit my family. I can do this. We can travel in it. It's an awesome car. But all the other features that it has, probably they haven't been used to this day. Had it for almost 2 years now, right? So that's my point. So I think what you said and combined with that, got to begin with the pain, understand it, go into depth. That's part of your niche. That's your ideal client profile. How do you have an ideal client profile if you don't know what their pain is? What are they suffering from? Because if you just did features and benefits and I talked about their pain, I will close them 100% of the time. You will not.